Yeah, so the SEC approved in-kind redemptions for Bitcoin ETFs, which is amazing news, with the caveat that it's only for like accredited investors or authorized participants,
not accredited investors.
Authorized participants, which is what, institutional funds?
Yeah. So my understanding is when you've got an entity like a BlackRock or a Bitwise or somebody who is the issuer of the ETF or the organizer, the marketer of the ETF, they still have to work with somebody like a Jane Street or a Citadel, I think, is in this business, and they're in the business of being this authorized participant, and they help manage the liquidity of kind of how much capital needs to be available to be able to run all the transactions and not get slippage and kind of get good pricing, efficient pricing when moving between Bitcoin and cash. And so this is really just allowing the authorized participants to be able to not have to keep getting back into cash, which means you end up tying up a lot of capital. I've heard it can be, you have $100 million that has to be tied up in a given day in order to be able to just run the operations of an ETF. And obviously, if you can make that number a lot smaller because you got a lot more efficiency there, then you sort of don't have to have that capital tied up. So this is sort of, accredited investors do not have any changes. Authorized participants have changes. They're a very niche part of the market, and they don't necessarily, it doesn't imply that it will get to retail, but I think without this step, I think it would be hard to get to retail ever. So I think this is like one step, but not necessarily confirming that it gets to retail.
Okay. It sounds like an even tinier step after that description.
Yeah, I'm less jazzed.
But nonetheless, a tiny step in the right direction.
Well, it's necessary. It's probably necessary, but not sufficient.
Yeah. And the reason for people who didn't listen last week or haven't heard us talk about this, why does this matter? A risk with ETFs is that they create a tax trap. So they are a really nice vehicle for a lot of folks to introduce themselves to Bitcoin and buy their first Bitcoin. But as people who've been in Bitcoin for a while know, number goes up. And so you buy some Bitcoin, before you know it, it maybe is 10x in value. So your cost basis, can be like 10% of the current value. And if you own Bitcoin in an ETF and then later learn, like 4 years later, oh, I actually want to use Bitcoin. I want to be able to send it to people, buy things, use a Bitcoin-backed loan through something self-custodial like Lava. I need access to my Bitcoin. Can't do that with an ETF. But then you face the tax trap because you would have to sell the ETF shares to then rebuy Bitcoin elsewhere so that you can use Bitcoin. And of course, that creates a massive barrier if people are faced with an enormous tax bill. So in-kind redemption for retail would allow you to take the Bitcoin out of the ETF, put it in your own wallet, use it, and not face that tax event.
It's good for freedom. And I'm still
bullish. And I think the movement by the SEC, by the way, I think the proposal came in January and it was just approved like on Thursday or Wednesday, I think. I think there's a lot of Bitcoiners are very skeptical of the state and sort of all of its machinations. So am I. But I'll say I don't think the state has like this long-term scheme to try to trap all the Bitcoin. Yeah, we think about that because we care about Bitcoin and we think, why would you ever sell this? Why would you ever get rid of it? But the state and politics works on very short time frames compared to that, like 4-year cycles and stuff. So I actually don't think that there's like some nefarious plan to try to capture all the Bitcoin. Not to say you shouldn't be skeptical and cautious about it, but I would hope that there is a day, and I don't think there's a strong reason not to, a day that you could get from in-kind to retail, from a retail ETF to an in-kind redemption of the native underlying Bitcoin as you can with gold. But the actual step, you got to think about like how much extra work is required to do that. Like, are you going to log into the same account where you log in to buy or sell an ETF? And are you going to give it like a cryptographic address? And are they going to call you up and verify the numbers? Like, there's a bunch of infrastructure and process that would have to be
BitKey integration.
designed. What is it?
BitKey integration.
Sure, that seems like another possible
and other similar products. But yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that DK is still confident. It gives me confidence. However, this also sounds like something a narc would say, so I don't know.
But yeah, will it require work? Sure, but it's like, I mean, BitKey's already proven it with Coinbase and Cash App and others. Robinhood, it's like super slick integration. It's like great user experience. It's secure. You can do that with ETFs too. Sure.
Yeah, I agree you can, and I think that's why I'm kind of optimistic it'll work, and it's just somebody has to build it. It just doesn't work that way today. So somebody has to build, the Schwab interface that lets you sell the ETF and push that, send a transaction to your BitKey.
I tend to agree, but I agree with your point. I agree with your point though, DK. And I think the high order bit is what we talk about mostly on the show, which is we need innovation. We need to build great applications that has user demand. If there's a lot of demand from the population to use applications, to use their Bitcoin, and their Bitcoin's trapped in ETFs, there's going to be political pressure to change that.
Yep.